The night was cold and heavy. A lonely human named Daniel walked slowly through the ruins of an old colony. The streets were silent, the air thick with smoke and dust. Broken walls stood like bones of a dead city. His boots pressed against shattered glass and twisted metal. He had walked this path many times before, searching for scrap and supplies, but tonight something felt different. The silence was too deep, the shadows too dark, and the wind carried strange echoes. Then he heard it. A sound so faint he thought it was only the wind, but it came again, sharper this time, thin and trembling. It was the cry of a child. Daniel froze. He turned his head, scanning the dark alley beside him. The cry rose again, mixed with fear and pain. His heart began to beat faster. Out here, there should be no children. The colony had been abandoned for years. Who could it be? With careful steps, he entered the narrow alley. The walls leaned close on both sides, and the ground was scattered with broken crates and trash. The sound guided him deeper, until he reached a half-collapsed storage room. The door was torn away, and inside only darkness waited. For a moment, he stood at the entrance, his mind warning him to turn back. But the cry came again, softer now, weaker, and Daniel could not ignore it. He pulled out a small lamp from his pack and switched it on. The dim light cut through the dust, and in the far corner of the room he saw movement. Two small figures were huddled together, their bodies shaking, their eyes wide and glowing faintly in the beam of his light. They were not human. Their skin had a pale silver tone, almost like moonlight, and thin markings ran across their arms, like veins of light. Daniel took a step closer. The younger one whimpered, pressing her face into the shoulder of the older girl. The older one raised her head, eyes shining with fear, but also with a silent plea. They looked so fragile, so weak, as if the night itself was swallowing them. His throat tightened. They could not be more than 7 or 8 years old. "Easy," he whispered, his voice calm, his hands open to show he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you." The girls stayed still, trembling. Daniel lowered himself slowly to the ground, making himself small so he would not seem like a threat. He placed his lamp on the floor, letting its soft glow spread across the room. In that light he could see their condition more clearly. Their clothes were torn, their faces dirty, and their small hands clutched each other tightly. Hunger showed in their eyes. He reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of bread he had saved. He placed it on the floor between them and slid it gently forward. The older girl hesitated, but when her sister gave a faint whimper, she reached out quickly, grabbed the bread and held it close. They ate in small bites, their hands shaking. Watching them, Daniel felt a mix of anger and sadness. Someone had left them here to die. Someone had abandoned them in this dead city, hoping no one would find them. He whispered again, "You're safe now. I'll help you." The older girl's lips moved. Her voice was thin and broken, but he caught the word. "Please." That single word held all the fear, all the pain, and all the hope of 2 children with nowhere else to go. Daniel knew then that he could not walk away. No matter what danger lay ahead, no matter what these children's past held, he would not leave them behind. He gathered his courage, walked closer, and extended his arms. "Come with me," he said firmly. The younger one clung tighter to her sister, but the older girl studied his face. She saw no anger there, no cruelty, only concern. Slowly, carefully, she nodded. Daniel wrapped his coat around them, lifting both into his arms. They were so light it felt like he was carrying feathers. Their small heads rested against his chest, and he could feel their shivers even through his clothes. As he stepped back into the alley, the night felt even darker than before. The ruins seemed to watch him, the shadows deeper, the silence heavier. The cries of the children had stopped, but now his ears caught something else. The faint crunch of footsteps somewhere behind him. He turned quickly, his lamp swinging through the dark, but the alley was empty. Only broken walls and drifting dust answered his search. He tightened his grip on the girls and quickened his pace. Somewhere out there, something had been watching. He could feel it in his bones. These children had been hunted before, and perhaps their hunters were not far away. As the night closed around them, Daniel whispered a silent vow. He would keep them safe. Whatever storm was coming, whatever danger had followed them into this ruined colony, he would stand against it. For now, the cries of the darkness had led him to life, and he would not let that life slip away again. The walk back to Daniel's shelter was long and uneasy. The ruins stretched around him like a graveyard, every corner filled with shadow. He carried the two alien girls close against his chest, his coat wrapped around them to shield their fragile bodies from the cold wind. Their breathing was soft and weak, yet he could feel the trust building in the way they leaned into him. Each step echoed in the empty streets, reminding him that silence in such a place was never safe. Daniel reached the old building he called home. It was once a guard outpost near the colony gates, now half broken but strong enough to keep the storms away. He pushed open the heavy metal door, slipped inside, and shut it firmly behind him. The room was dark and smelled of old smoke, but it was safer than the streets. He set the girls gently on a small bed made of blankets in the corner. The younger one curled up right away, her eyes half closed with exhaustion. The older girl stayed awake, her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel as if measuring his every move. Daniel knew that trust did not come easily. These children had seen fear, maybe even violence, before he found them. He moved slowly, not wanting to scare them, and lit a lantern to chase away the dark corners of the shelter. He reached into a small crate where he kept his food supplies. There wasn't much: dried meat, old bread, and a few sealed packs of water. He poured water into a tin cup and handed it carefully to the older girl. Her hands shook as she took it, but she did not spill a drop. She pressed the cup to her sister's lips first, letting her drink before taking any herself. Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. Even in their weakness, they protected each other. He gave them more bread, softer than the scraps from earlier. They ate slowly, almost shyly, but every bite seemed to give them a little more strength. When they finished, Daniel knelt beside the bed and spoke in a gentle tone. "You are safe here. No one will harm you." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the older girl spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "Why?" Daniel frowned. "Why what? Why help us?" Her words carried suspicion, but also confusion. She had lived in a world where kindness was rare, and she could not understand why a stranger would risk so much for her and her sister. Daniel looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes, but also the spark of strength. He chose his words carefully. "Because no one deserves to be left in the dark. Because you are children, and children should never be abandoned." The girl lowered her eyes, her lips pressed tight, but her hand reached out to touch her sister's face with tenderness. Daniel did not push further. He knew answers would come in time. Trust was not built in a single night. Later, as the girls rested, Daniel sat by the door with his old rifle across his knees. His eyes scanned the cracks in the wall where moonlight slipped inside. The memory of footsteps in the alley haunted him. He could not shake the feeling that something, or someone, had followed them. His shelter was strong but not unbreakable. If danger came, he would need to fight. Hours passed. The younger girl slept soundly, her breathing steady, while the older one shifted uneasily, waking often with small gasps. Each time she woke, her eyes darted around the room until they found Daniel sitting by the door. Only then did she close her eyes again, as if his presence alone kept the shadows away. Near dawn, Daniel stood and walked quietly to the small window. The horizon glowed with faint red light, and the ruins outside looked even more lifeless than before. But something in the air made his skin prickle. The streets were not empty. He felt eyes on him. Somewhere out there, hidden in the ruins, someone was watching. He returned to the girls and knelt beside them. The younger one stirred, whispering in her sleep, The older girl opened her eyes again. Her lips trembled before she spoke. They will come. Daniel leaned closer. Who will come? She swallowed hard, her voice barely more than a breath. The hunters. The word chilled Daniel to the bone. Hunters. Whoever had chased these children was not finished. And now, by saving them, he had placed himself directly in their path. He looked at the girls, so small, so fragile, yet carrying a weight no child should bear. His hand rested on his rifle and his jaw tightened. Then they'll have to go through me first, he muttered. The older girl studied him with wide eyes. For the first time, a faint spark of trust appeared there. She nodded slowly, as if believing his promise. Daniel knew that danger was coming. But he also knew one more thing. He would never let these children fall into the hands of their hunters again. His shelter had become their only shield, and he would stand as their protector no matter what dawn might bring. The first light of dawn painted the broken colony in shades of red and gold. Inside the shelter, Daniel sat awake, his rifle close by, his eyes heavy with lack of sleep. He had spent the night listening for footsteps, every creak of the old walls, making him tighten his grip. The two alien girls had slept in fits, the younger one resting soundly under the warmth of his coat, while the older one woke again and again, as if chased by nightmares. Now, with the sun rising, the shelter felt both safer and more dangerous at once. Safer because shadows no longer ruled the corners, but dangerous because daylight made it easier for enemies to track them. Daniel poured a little water into a tin cup and handed it to the older girl. She accepted it, her small hands trembling, but this time she managed a quiet thank you. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a weight beyond her years. Daniel studied her face. Pale silver skin marked with faint glowing lines, her eyes too sharp for a child. She looked at him hesitant, then leaned closer as if she had made a choice. They will not stop, she whispered. Daniel frowned. Who won't stop? The hunters. The word slid from her lips like a shadow. He sat still, letting her continue. She glanced at her sleeping sister, then lowered her voice further. They came to our village at night. They burned the houses. They dragged people away. My mother told us to run, but we were too slow. They caught many. We hid in the ruins. We thought she would come back for us, but the hunters stayed. We ran again, and they chased us. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. They kill the weak and they sell the strong. They want us because of what we are. Daniel felt anger coil in his chest. He had seen war before. He had seen cruelty. But to hear of children hunted like prey was something else entirely. He kept his voice calm. And what are you? The girl hesitated, then touched the glowing lines on her arm. We are Lyran. My people carry the light inside us. The hunters call it power. To them, we are tools, not children. Daniel stared at the faint glow pulsing beneath her skin. He could feel the truth in her words. He had heard rumors of rare alien races, hunted for what made them different. He never thought he would meet one, much less two frightened children left in the ruins of a dead colony. He leaned forward, his tone steady. You are safe here. I won't let them take you. The girl's lips trembled. For a moment she looked, ready to argue, but instead she asked, Why? You don't know us. We are not your kind. Daniel gave a bitter smile. Doesn't matter. No child deserves to be hunted. No one deserves to be left behind. Her shoulders eased slightly as if a small weight had lifted. She looked at him again, not with fear this time, but with something closer to trust. The younger girl stirred awake, blinking up at Daniel before curling tighter against her sister. She whispered a word in her own language, one Daniel could not understand. But he saw the older girl's hand stroke her hair, soothing her back into calm. It was then Daniel realized how much responsibility rested on this young child's shoulders. She had carried her sister through terror, through hunger, through a world filled with hunters. She had kept them alive when everything else had fallen apart. Daniel's chest tightened with respect. What's your name? He asked softly. The older girl paused, as if the name itself was dangerous to share. Then she said, "Lyra, and she is Nira." Daniel repeated the names quietly, committing them to memory. Lyra and Nira, names he would not forget. The morning passed slowly. Daniel worked to make the shelter more secure, reinforcing the door with metal sheets and stacking crates against the windows. He set up traps in the alley outside, simple alarms made from scrap, to give warning if anyone approached. While the girls stayed close, their eyes following him with quiet curiosity. At one point, Lyra spoke again, her voice carrying a shadow of fear. "They will come here. The hunters never stop." Daniel straightened and looked at her with steady eyes. "Let them come. They'll find me waiting." Lyra studied him, then gave a small nod. For the first time, she seemed to believe he could keep his promise. As night approached again, the wind howled through the ruins, carrying with it a sense of unease. Daniel sat by the door, rifle in hand, while the girls curled up together under his coat. Their breathing was soft, fragile, yet in that sound Daniel found strength. When the world outside wanted to destroy innocence, he would stand against it. He had walked alone through these ruins for years, but now he had a reason to fight. The whispers of the past had told him enough. These children carried a light the hunters wanted to steal. He would not let them. And as the darkness deepened, Daniel felt the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders. This was no longer survival. This was protection, and he was ready for the storm that was coming. The night passed heavy and restless. Daniel did not close his eyes even once. He sat with his rifle across his knees, watching the flicker of the lantern as it painted long shadows on the cracked walls. The girls, Lyra and Nira, slept together under his coat, their breaths uneven but steady. Each time the wind rattled, the door or a crate shifted, Daniel's hand tightened around his weapon. When the first rays of dawn touched the broken windows, silence wrapped the shelter in a strange stillness. The kind of silence that comes not from peace but from something waiting to happen. Daniel stood and stretched his stiff muscles. He stepped to the small window, scanning the ruined street outside. Empty. Only the rising sun and dust carried by the wind. Then, without warning, the sound came. A knock, sharp, heavy, echoing through the metal door. Daniel froze. The knock came again, slower this time, as if whoever stood outside already knew he was inside. His grip tightened on the rifle. No one knocked at dawn in these ruins. Hunters did not knock. They kicked down doors. Whoever it was, their confidence was unsettling. Lyra sat up quickly, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She pulled Nira close and whispered something in her language. Nira whimpered and buried her face in her sister's chest. Daniel raised a hand signaling them to stay quiet. His mind raced. If it was hunters, he would have to fight. If it was scavengers, he could scare them off. But if it was something else, something worse, he would need every ounce of strength to protect the girls. The knock came a third time. This one softer, almost patient. Daniel's heart pounded, but he forced himself to move. He lifted the rifle, walked to the door, and pressed his ear against the cold metal. For a long breath, there was silence. Then, a voice, deep, steady, filled with strange power. "Open. I seek my daughters." Daniel's breath caught. He turned quickly to Lyra. Her face had gone pale, her eyes filled with shock and recognition. She whispered one word. "Mother." Daniel felt a chill slide down his spine. He had expected hunters, maybe bandits, not this. He looked at Lyra, uncertain, but she nodded faintly. The truth was in her eyes. Whoever stood outside was there. Mother. Slowly, Daniel unlatched the door, but he did not lower his rifle. The metal creaked as he pulled it open. A tall figure stepped inside. She was unlike any being Daniel had ever seen. Her silver skin glowed faintly, brighter than her daughter's, and markings across her arms pulsed like rivers of light. Her eyes were sharp, glowing amber, carrying both sorrow and strength. Her long cloak flowed behind her, torn from travel, yet she carried herself like a queen who had never bowed. The girls cried out together, "Mother," and rushed into her arms. She dropped to her knees, wrapping them tightly, her hands trembling as she pressed her face against their hair. For a moment, the room filled with the sound of their reunion, raw and aching. Daniel lowered his rifle slightly but did not let go. Relief washed over him, yet unease followed close behind. This woman's presence was overwhelming, her aura powerful enough to make the air feel heavy. She was no ordinary mother. The woman rose slowly, holding her daughters close, her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. For a long moment she said nothing, only studied him with unreadable expression. Then, at last, she spoke. "You saved them." Her voice carried both gratitude and something deeper, something that felt like a warning. Daniel nodded. "I found them in the ruins. They would not have survived the night." The woman's eyes softened for a brief instant. She brushed her hands over Lyra and Nira's hair, whispering words in her own tongue. The children clung tighter to her, their tears wetting her cloak. Then she turned back to Daniel. "You risked much for them. For that I owe you more than words." Daniel shifted uneasily. He had not done it for reward. He had done it because he could not walk away. "They are children," he said simply. "They needed help." The woman's lips curved in the faintest smile. Few would have seen them as children. Many see only what they can take. But you chose to protect. She stepped forward, her presence filling the room. In her hand, a small crystal box appeared, glowing with inner light. Its surface shimmered as if made from living stone. She held it out toward him. "This is my gift," she said, "a reward for saving my daughters." Daniel did not reach for it. The box pulsed in her hand, humming with strange energy that seemed to call out to him. He could feel its power even from a distance. His instincts warned him it was dangerous. "What is it?" he asked cautiously. The woman's glowing eyes held his. "It is the heart of my people, a gift that binds fate. If you accept it, your life will never be the same." Lyra and Nira clung to her, their eyes wide. Daniel looked at them, then back at their mother. He had wanted safety, peace, maybe just another day of survival. But standing before him now was a choice, a path that could lead to something far greater or something far darker. The dawn light spilled through the broken window, falling on the crystal box in her hand. It glowed brighter, filling the room with a strange warmth. Daniel's heart pounded as he realized that his rescue of 2 frightened children had led to this, a moment that would change everything. And outside, in the ruins, unseen figures stirred. The hunters had not given up. They were still out there waiting, watching, ready to strike. The crystal box glowed in the woman's hands, its light shifting like water, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, as if it breathed with a life of its own. Daniel kept his rifle close, his body tense, though part of him already knew he could not fight her even if he wanted to. Her presence was too strong, her voice too heavy with power. The 2 little girls clung to her cloak, their silver eyes fixed on Daniel. They trusted him now, but their mother was something else entirely. She was both comfort and danger in the same body. Daniel spoke carefully. "I don't want a reward. I only did what was right." The woman tilted her head, her glowing amber eyes never leaving his. "That is why you deserve it. A man who saves without seeking gain is the one who must be given something greater." She extended the box closer. The humming grew louder, vibrating in Daniel's bones. He felt warmth spill across his skin, a heat that was not fire but something deeper, something alive. His instincts screamed to step back, but his heart told him to reach out. "Take it," she said. "It is the bond of my people. Once given, it cannot be undone." Daniel hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "And if I refuse?" The woman's face softened, though sorrow touched her voice. "Then it will fade, and we will leave. But you must know, refusing this gift is refusing destiny itself. For a long moment, silence filled the shelter. The children's small breaths were the only sound. Daniel's fingers twitched against his rifle. He had lived alone for years, surviving one day at a time. Yet here, in the ruins, fate had placed two fragile children in his care, and now their mother was offering him something that pulsed like the heartbeat of a star. Finally, Daniel stepped forward. His hand hovered above the crystal box. The glow surged brighter, responding to his presence. His chest tightened. He had faced storms, raiders, and machines, but nothing had ever made him feel this kind of fear and awe. Slowly, he placed his hand on the box. The moment his skin touched it, light exploded across the room. It rushed into him like a flood, filling every part of his body. His old wounds, scars from battles long past, burned and then faded. His lungs filled with air as if for the first time. Strength surged into his muscles, yet it was not just physical. His mind sharpened, his senses widened. He could hear the faint rustle of dust outside, the soft pulse of the children's hearts, even the whisper of energy running through the box itself. He gasped, dropping to one knee as the power overwhelmed him. His rifle slipped from his hand and clattered against the floor. The girls cried out in fear, rushing forward, but their mother raised a hand, stopping them. Her eyes never left Daniel. "It accepts you," she said. "The heart of our people has chosen you." Daniel lifted his head, sweat dripping down his face, his chest rising and falling in heavy breaths. What have you done to me?" The woman stepped closer, her expression calm but filled with deep meaning. "I have given you what no human has ever carried, the Lyran bond. It is more than power. It is protection, healing, and sight beyond sight, but it comes with a cost." Her words hung in the air like a blade. Daniel forced himself to stand. He felt stronger than ever, yet he also felt something else, a connection, a thread that linked him not only to the box but to the two small girls standing nearby. His heart raced as he realized the truth. "They are tied to me now," he whispered. The woman nodded. "Yes. Their light and your life are now bound. You saved them with choice. Now fate has sealed that choice forever." Daniel clenched his fists. "You should have asked me before binding me to something I don't understand." Her eyes softened, though sorrow lingered in them. "I did not need to ask. The bond does not lie. It chooses only those who would already give their life for them. You already did the moment you carried them from the ruins." Daniel turned away, his thoughts racing. He wanted to deny it, but deep down, he knew she was right. From the moment he heard their cries in the dark, he had chosen to protect them. The bond had only made that truth permanent. The girls looked at him now with new eyes. Lyra's gaze held both relief and fear. She whispered softly, "You are part of us." Neera pressed close to her sister, her small hand reaching out toward Daniel as if drawn by something invisible. Daniel's chest tightened. He had been alone for so long, but now he was no longer alone, whether he wanted it or not. Outside, the wind howled and faint shapes moved among the ruins. The hunters had not left. They had tracked the girls across the colony, and now they could sense the light burning brighter than ever. The woman turned her head toward the door, her face hardening. "They come," she said. "The gift has awakened them. The bond has made you a target." Daniel picked up his rifle, his hand steady despite the storm in his chest. He no longer felt like the same man who had walked through the ruins yesterday. The box's light still burned in him, changing him, binding him. He looked at the children, at their mother, and then at the door where danger waited. If this was destiny, then he would meet it head-on. The ruins outside groaned as the wind swept through broken towers. Inside the shelter, silence pressed heavy on every breath. Daniel stood with his rifle ready, his body tense, the glow of the crystal bond still humming inside his chest. He could feel it in his blood, in his bones, in every heartbeat. The girls clung to their mother's cloak, their eyes wide as they sensed the danger creeping closer. The woman looked at Daniel with steady eyes. "The hunters know," she said. "The bond has awakened the light. They will come for you now as much as for us." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had survived battles before, but this was different. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He looked at Lyra and Nira, their small faces pale with fear, and something fierce burned inside him. Whatever had been given to him, whatever had changed in his body, he would use it to protect them. A sudden crash echoed from outside. Metal clanged against stone, followed by the heavy thud of boots. Daniel's senses sharpened instantly. He could hear their steps, more than one, moving with purpose. His grip on the rifle steadied, yet beneath his skin the bond pulsed, whispering that he had more than a weapon now. The door shuddered as something struck it. Dust rained from the ceiling. Nira whimpered, burying her face against her mother's chest. Lyra reached for Daniel with trembling fingers. "They've found us," she whispered. Daniel placed a hand on the doorframe, feeling the vibrations of the blows. He should have been afraid, but instead he felt a calm fire spreading through him. His wounds no longer ached. His tired muscles no longer felt weak. His breath came steady, deep and strong. The bond was alive in him, waiting to be called. The door burst open. Dark figures stormed inside. Armored hunters, their faces hidden behind masks, their weapons raised. Their movements were sharp, mechanical, trained. The first one aimed at Daniel, but before he could fire, Daniel moved. His inert body reacted faster than thought. The rifle lifted and roared, striking true. The hunter dropped to the floor. Another lunged forward with a blade, but Daniel's hand shot out and caught the attacker's wrist with crushing force. The man screamed as Daniel twisted and flung him across the room. The strength startled even Daniel himself. He had never been this fast, never this strong. More hunters surged in, shouting in harsh voices. Daniel raised his hand without even thinking. Light burst from his palm, a shockwave that threw two hunters back against the wall. Their weapons clattered to the floor as they struggled to rise. Daniel stared at his own hand, glowing faintly with the same light that marked the girl's skin. He had no idea how he had done it, but the bond had answered his will. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with power. The woman's voice rang out behind him. "Do not fight it, let it flow. The bond is not a weapon, and it is life. Use it to shield." Another hunter charged, aiming for the girls. Daniel moved faster than he thought possible. He stepped between them, lifted his arm, and light curved outward like a wall. The hunter slammed against it, falling back stunned. The girls gasped, staring at Daniel with awe. But more shadows filled the doorway. There were too many. Daniel's muscles burned, his chest rising and falling in sharp breaths. The bond gave him strength, but it demanded focus, and the weight of it pressed heavy on his mind. The woman raised her hand, speaking words in her own tongue. Energy shimmered in the air, striking the hunters with force, but even she could not hold them all at once. The enemy pressed harder, their hunger for the Lyran children pushing them into madness. Daniel fought with everything he had. His rifle roared. His fists struck with power beyond human strength, and the light shield flared again and again. But for every hunter that fell, two more seemed to step into the room. At last, Daniel stood in the center of the shelter, his body trembling, his clothes torn, his chest glowing faintly with the energy inside him. The last hunter lunged, blade raised high. Daniel caught the strike with his bare hand. The blade cracked against the glow of the bond, shattering into pieces. With one final surge, Daniel struck forward, sending the attacker crashing into the wall. Silence fell. The shelter shook with the aftermath of battle. Smoke drifted from broken weapons. The girls stared at Daniel, their small bodies pressed together, their eyes wide with both fear and wonder. Lyra whispered, "You are like us now." Daniel dropped to one knee, his chest heaving. His body felt alive, but also heavy, as if carrying a burden too large. He looked at his glowing hand, then at the girls. "I don't know what I've become," he muttered. The woman stepped closer, her expression grave but proud. You are no longer only human. The bond has revealed what was hidden. You are a guardian now. Outside, the ruins echoed with distant shouts. More hunters would come. The fight was not over. It had only begun. But in Daniel's heart, a fire burned brighter than fear. He had seen his power, and he had felt his purpose. He was bound to these children, and nothing in the universe would take them from him. The shelter was filled with silence after the battle, broken only by the crackle of smoke and the slow breaths of the survivors. Daniel stood in the center, his rifle hanging loosely at his side, his hand still glowing faintly with the bond's light. The floor was littered with fallen hunters, their dark armor dented and broken, their weapons scattered across the stone. Lyra and Nira clung to their mother's cloak, their wide eyes fixed on Daniel. They had seen death before, but never had. They seen someone fight for them with such fury. For the first time, their fear was mixed with something else. Hope. Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead, his chest rising and falling. He looked at the children, then at their mother. "They'll be back," he said, his voice low but steady. This was only the first wave. The woman nodded. Her face was calm, though her eyes held a deep sadness. "The hunters do not give up. They will follow us across worlds if they must. But you have given us something they fear." Daniel frowned. "And what is that?" She looked at him with sharp eyes that seemed to see through his soul. "You." The weight of her words settled heavily on him. He had been just a man surviving in the ruins, a man carrying the scars of old battles and old regrets. Now, because of a choice made in the dark, to follow the cry of children, he had become something else entirely. Lyra stepped forward, her small hand trembling as she reached for his. The glow on her skin pulsed in rhythm with the light in Daniel's chest. "The bond chose you," she said softly. "It means you are family now." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He looked down at her, then at Nira, who hid behind her sister but peeked out with shy eyes. He had lived years without anyone, believing he was better off alone, yet in this moment he realized he no longer wanted solitude. The bond had tied him to them, yes, but his own heart had already made the choice. He knelt in front of them, his rough hands resting gently on their shoulders. "Then I will protect you. As long as I live, no one will take you away again." The girls pressed against him, their small arms wrapping around his neck. He closed his eyes, holding them close. For the first time in years, warmth filled the hollow places inside him. The woman watched quietly, her cloak shifting as the light of dawn crept through the cracks in the wall. When Daniel finally stood, she stepped closer, her voice soft but strong. "You are more than guardian now. You are part of our circle. My people do not give such bonds lightly, yet fate has spoken. You carry our light." Daniel shook his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. "I don't even understand this power. I barely controlled it." "You will learn," she said firmly. "The bond does not give without guiding. It will teach you in time. But know this, enemies will come stronger than the hunters you face today. And when they do, you must stand with us, or all will be lost." Her words carried a warning, but also trust. She believed in him, perhaps more than he believed in himself. Outside, the ruins were quiet for now, but Daniel's sharpened senses caught faint traces of movement far away. The hunters regrouped, watching, waiting. They would not stay hidden for long. Daniel gripped his rifle tighter, though now he knew the weapon was no longer his only strength. The bond burned inside him, a constant reminder that his life had changed forever. He looked at the girls again, their innocent faces, their fragile bodies, their will to survive. They were his reason now. Lyra whispered, "Are we safe?" Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady but honest. "Not yet. But as long as I breathe, I'll keep you safe." The child's small hand squeezed his, and for the first time, Daniel saw trust in her eyes. Real trust. Not the hesitant glance of a stranger, but the trust of family. The woman placed her hand on his shoulder. Then we walk together from this day on. Human and Lyran, bound beyond worlds. Daniel nodded. He had never asked for destiny. Never asked for power. Never asked for family. Yet in this broken colony, he had found all three. The sun rose higher, painting the ruins with gold. Smoke drifted upward, carrying away the last shadows of the night. But in the distance, a dark shape moved, the hunters preparing for their return. Daniel lifted his rifle, the bond glowing brighter within him. He stood tall, with Lyra and Nira at his side, their mother behind them, and for the first time, in years he did not feel alone. The war was not over. In truth, it was only beginning. But whatever came next, Daniel was ready. Because he was no longer just a survivor. He was their guardian, their family, their shield against the darkness. Bond beyond worlds had been forged, and nothing would ever break it.